Chels, we are back with a Kroger-Albertsons merger update and why one of Kroger's lawyers is trying to convince us that the grocery industry is fragmented rather than monopolized.
Yeah, this caused some Googling on my end to have a full understanding. But before we get into that, I do want to, first of all, thank all of our subscribers here on YouTube. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I do want to remind you it is one of the number one ways that you can help us grow our channel and the podcast. So if you haven't, just click the button down below to subscribe and make sure you turn on updates so that you will get notified when we release more news videos like this. Okay, Sarah, I do have some updates from all of the trials that are happening around the Kroger-Albertsons merger. You know, it was kind of quiet there for a little bit. We didn't get much information about what was going on in the state of Washington and the state of Colorado, where both of these state level, trials have been going on, where those attorneys generals brought Kroger and Albertsons to court there. But both of those trials wrapped up this week. So we got a little bit of news that I want to share with you. Number one, we are still waiting to hear from the judge in the FTC's case against Kroger and Albertsons. That court case, if you remember, took place in Portland pretty much during the whole month of September. And we are still waiting on a decision in that trial.
Yeah.
In the meantime, last week on Wednesday, the case in Washington held closing arguments, which I know you're going to get a little bit into in a moment. But I do want to say one exciting thing I noticed when I was reading about the closing arguments in that trial is that judge actually said that tentatively their plan is to deliver a decision by November 15th. So we have a date there to look out for in the next couple weeks. And then last Thursday, the case in Colorado also came to a close. Closing arguments were delivered there. And we don't know what we're going to hear from the judge in that case. There was no, predetermined date for that one. So we'll have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah. And each of the trials was a little bit different, right? They were brought by different states, right? Yeah, obviously, the FTC was involved in the trial that happened in Portland. And in Colorado, as we discussed in a previous, news segment here on YouTube, there were some specific things that happened within the state of Colorado that Kroger and Albertsons were being charged with, including collaborating or corroborating, if you will, on promising not to hire from one another's stores during an employee strike, right? Which is not allowed within the state and the rules and guidelines, there. So while people may have thought that this was like the same trial happening in 3 different places, it's not the case. And what was really interesting was that, we learned some new things and heard some new arguments in each of the trials. And I'm going to let you share that little piece of information that really got us fired up.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. Like, there were some nuanced differences in each of these cases. And in Washington state specifically, what we saw in that case was a real focus on competition, on the divestiture plan to CNS, right? Because there are so many Kroger and Albertsons bannered grocery stores in the state of Washington. Yeah. I think at one point I read there were over 200 just in the Seattle-Tacoma, greater area, which is a lot of stores.
Yeah.
But the thing that you're kind of referencing and that we really want to get into is that, yes, the lawyer for Krogers said in court, and I'm actually going to go and pull it because I want to get it absolutely correct. So give me one second. So Kroger's legal team argued that the state's argument that they would be losing their number one competitor, right, if Albertsons were to go away, displayed a lack of understanding about Kroger's business model and the fragmenting grocery industry.
So when I read this article. You shared it with me, as you do as a producer. You're out there finding all the best information, bringing it to the table. I'm reading through it, and I remember reading it the first time and sort of finishing the article and then going, wait, what? And so going back up to this idea that we have a fragmented grocery industry. And so we literally went to the Googler. We were like, okay, we're going to give this gentleman the benefit of the doubt here. We're going to ask
Yeah.
Google if fragmented industry means what we think it does, or if there's some other definition that we're unaware of. But lo and behold, as we suspected, a fragmented market is one where there is no company that can exert enough influence to move the industry in a particular direction. In other words, he's claiming that the grocery market, consists of several small to medium-sized companies that compete with each other and large enterprises. And again, that there is no one business that has enough power, influence, etc., to move the industry in any one direction. I almost don't know what to say.
Yeah, that's I think we found the plot, Sarah. So to say.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's kind of the point, sir, Mr. Kroger lawyer, that the state of Washington is making, is that that's how it should remain.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And so it's kind of baffling to me that it's kind of baffling to me that he is trying to argue that it's fully fragmented currently, right? Because we
Yeah.
know that Amazon and Walmart both have influence sort of in I would say kind of separate sectors of the industry. You know what I mean? Amazon being online and obviously, having a certain kind of influence on the market. They're currently under investigation by the FTC as well. And then we know from I don't know how much people read articles and study Walmart, but Walmart has massive impact on industry and communities whenever they move into a new location. So to think that the industry is so fragmented that not one single company has influence is not true. Like, it's just, that blows my mind. And then to think that by joining forces with Albertsons, that this would not further defragment the industry is also just completely mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. And it was interesting because he was also talking about this. Mark Perry, which is the lawyer
Yeah.
that was representing Kroger that we're talking about, he coupled this with this idea that Kroger has to be able to do more to keep prices low or to even lower them further if they're going to compete with, as we've heard them talk about before, right? Walmart, Costco, Trader Joe's,
Yeah.
these other grocers. And it's actually what is incentivizing what they're calling their like flywheel business model that
Mm-hmm.
includes high margin data and ad services
Mm-hmm.
that rely on a high volume of customers moving through the store and buying online to actually have the intended result.
Yeah. What I also think is really interesting, and I think this is important to share and kind of dig into a little bit here, is that you and I know, Chelsea, that when a brand goes on sale at a store like Kroger, the store does not take a hit for that promotion. The brand that is on sale is the one who pays for that. Kroger still gets the full revenue value of that product. So I like, right on the top of this, it's like, I think there's a level of sort of like dishonesty or lack of transparency around what is actually involved in discounting. Now, store owned brands, right? Kroger brand products, things of that nature. I don't know what those promotions and things look like. Certainly when I could imagine that when those go on sale, Kroger does take the hit on the revenue because there's not another business, right, that would be paying for those promotions. But for the majority of the grocery store, the name brands in the grocery store, again, Kroger is not paying for those discounts. Kroger is not taking a hit. It's not costing them anything. So I found that really, really interesting. I also thought it was really interesting and you pointed this out actually, for them to talk about the other ways that they make money as a grocery store. They call it a flywheel strategy. You can Google that to see what exactly that means. But essentially, they've got multiple ways of generating revenue. They don't have all of their eggs, so to speak, in one basket, but it relates to a previous news story that we did around, dynamic pricing and some of the tools and tactics that grocery stores are considering using, Kroger being one of them, to generate revenue in store from people's eyeballs, right? Ad spend, collecting data on their customers, things of that nature. So it's interesting to hear that called out here in the trial, in the context of being able to offer lower prices.
Yeah, and something that even just made me think about is like, who's paying for those ads? The brands, right, are
Mm-hmm.
paying to advertise on
Yeah.
those digital price tags or in the flyers, right?
Yeah.
And essentially it's like this is a double dip,
The whole
right?
industry is a double dip.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. It's just becoming clear to me how much.
This is the triple dip, I guess. They're like, yeah.
Yeah, and then if we can, roll Albertsons under our umbrella, we'll have a quadruple dip.
Yeah. But go ahead. But finish your thought, because there are other people who aren't in my head, and I want them to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, essentially what I'm thinking is like if they're making their money off of the consumer, right? Because as you've
Mm-hmm.
already pointed out, they're not losing money on promotions. They're not losing money on like they're always going to get their margin no matter what, right? The
Uh-huh.
same margin.
Yes, and let's also hold
The
on and say that when the brand is placed on the shelf for the very first time, they are making money from the brand in the terms of things like slotting fees or free fills or discounted like first products called intro allowance. So they're making money from the brand in order to get on the shelf. That's what it means to basically buy your shelf space. And then, as you're saying, they're making full revenue anytime a product is sold. They are not taking a hit whenever there is a promotion. So yes, continue.
And then on top of that, they're getting additional revenue, as you said, diversifying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Through that ad spend from a brand again.
Yeah. And
So,
yeah, and think about every time you walk into a store and there's like, they call them end caps. So like a special display at the end of an
mm,
aisle, any kind of special literature about a brand. I mean, yes, it does take money to create those, but typically the brand is paying. Small brands anyway will have to pay for the structure. So let's say it's like, we're going to say like the Super Bowl, right? And say that you were going to have like a Super Bowl end cap. And so you made like a cardboard thing that's like football themed, and then your snacks were going to be within that themed thing. Like typically the small brand has to pay for that setup, and then they have to pay for that space at the end of the aisle, and that becomes available to different types of brands and different types of products throughout the year. So grocery stores make money lots of different ways, and just kind of talking through this with you to have this idea planted in our heads that Albertsons is only making money from the sale of products is also false. So, Mr.
mhm.
Perry, you know, I'm just not believing what you're saying based on what we know to be true in the industry. And we've said it so many times before, this industry is shrouded in secrecy. And to then see in closing arguments in court, like mistruths being said is just astonishing.
Yeah, and I think if they are expecting us to believe, and I guess not us, right? We're not the jury, but or the judge, but if they're expecting anyone to believe that consolidating that power
Yeah.
will make it better for or lower the costs, right, for a consumer or a brand,
Yeah.
I'm just not buying it.
Yeah. Same. Same. And there's evidence to prove, or to show, I should say, not prove, but to show that in the past, during mergers, customers haven't won.
Yeah, we actually did a video on that as well. And I'll link to that one down in the details if you want to check that out.
Yeah. So, Giles, will continue to show up here with updates regarding the Kroger-Albertsons merger. As you mentioned earlier, definitely subscribe. And if you're not on our mailing list, go to thegoodfoodcfo.com, join the newsletter there. We will also provide industry updates as well as, food biz, financial, and other updates if you're a food business owner via that newsletter as well.